Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We are thrilled to have Volley here and Scott Davis. We'll give you an intro here in a second, but this is the stats you need to grow your service BDC. And when I heard about this and the fact they're analyzing 10 million data points, I totally geeked out. Enough about me. Let's get into this whole thing. We've got me, Chief Marketing Officer at TradePending. Scott, we're not related, but at least not that I know of. Scott Davis from Volley. Hey, Scott.
Hey, I think we might be ninth cousins or something like that. So,
I'm sure we are. We'll
yeah,
give you a moment to intro yourself, the company, et cetera. We'll just kind of blast through this little initial part, which everyone's familiar with. Yes, we are recording this. Yes, we'll share it out afterwards. If you have questions as we go, type them in the Q&A box in the chat. We'll get to them when we get to them. If you don't follow us yet on the social medias, you should do that because we've got a ton of great thought leadership content, best practices content, and also some really entertaining stuff where I just go in and interview random people in dealerships, sales staff, people on the street. It's a good time. And for all the trade pending customers we have out there, we have a phenomenal referral program. You send us a referral, they sign up, we will send you a really, really nice Yeti cooler, not an orange McLaren, if that's what that is there. Alex snuck that in there on me there. All right. So let's get going. Scott, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to turn it over to you and I'll chime in when appropriate, but otherwise, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
yeah, sounds good, Matt. And just jump in anytime. Um, so really very excited to be on today. And what I'm going to be talking about today is the stats you need to know to run your service BDC. We look backwards to 10 million calls, 6.8 million outbound calls attempts, and 3.4 million inbound calls to where we could look 90 days forward. So the stats we have on this are service BDC stats. I am Scott Davis, the founder of Volie. We are a Fort Myers based company and we sell BDC software to dealers. They run their sales and service BDCs. It's an all-in-one solution that allows you to manage data, campaign it, and then your agents work in here to call, email, and SMS your customers. And we help you profitably run your BDC. So let me get right after it.
And I'll throw in real quick that we met each other through a really new 20 group called the Vendor 20 Group, put together by Brent Williams, former CEO of Snapcell, and Dave Sponicky at Reunion Marketing, and David Kane. And so it's a cool little group of vendors that are trying to just be better.
Yeah, it's a great group too. So if you're on this call today, you probably know it's really hard to run a BDC profitably. I don't know how many times I've been in stores and they're like, gosh, we used to have a great BDC and then Matt left and it fell apart. Or, yeah, I've got a BDC, it's expensive. Well, everything in the dealership's expensive. It's just how do you profitably run it? How do you profitably make sure that your most expensive part, your agents, are working efficiently? So I'm going to give you some numbers today that should help you profitably run the store. So we break up the service BDC in two parts, inbound and outbound. Though all their agents work in a blended fashion. So the first goal in any business is to take care of the people that are trying to do business with you. So your inbound business, how are you doing? We hear all the time, oh my gosh, our store is different. Our customers don't call after this time, they don't call after this time, etc. When we looked at those 10 million phone calls, 3.4 million of them were inbound calls. This was the dispersion of calls. So as you can see, you've got from before 8 o'clock, you've got 4 to 5% of the calls come in, and after 5 o'clock in the time period, you get about 5% of the calls to come in. But during the day, your peak time is 8 to 11. Your busiest hour is easily 9 to 10 in the morning. But in general, our customers call only at this time probably doesn't make a lot of sense. The average inbound call duration was 4 minutes, 19 seconds across these 3.4 million inbound calls. If they scheduled an inbound appointment, it's 4 minutes, 4 seconds. Why would it be longer? Well, we also track the service advisors. So the transfers of service advisors, your customers are spending a fair amount of time on the call. Don't fall into the, gee, My calls come in differently. They don't. But first of all, any strategy you have needs to start with Mondays. Mondays are different. If you look at the graph, 39% more calls come in on Monday than the average of Tuesday through Friday. And so your staffing strategy starts with Monday. No days off on Monday. Any part-time people you have, they need to start with Mondays. Tuesday through Friday are fairly consistent. 9% of the stores that had a Saturday BDC, the calls came in on Saturday. If you're trying to save some money or it's tough on staffing, you're probably costing yourself business if you're not answering the phones on Saturdays morning because customers are still calling. I would really consider that whether you hire that in store or maybe that's an area where you'd outsource it. I can't really explain this next part, but the outbound contact rate was better on Mondays, 11.4% than the rest of the week too. And the only thing that makes sense to me is that people had something come up over the weekend and they're red hot to get it taken care of on a Monday. So Mondays are just different. Keep that in mind. Your strategy starts with a Monday. What about drop rate? Whole businesses have been built around just helping you realize how you're answering the phones. The stats are pretty interesting. So, first of all, the people who drop, only 37% of them call back in within 7 days. Of those, 74% have a existing appointment or a previous history in the DMS. These people are buyers. People don't like IVRs. They don't like staying on hold. 43% of the people dropped within 30 seconds. So
That's big.
yeah. I mean, that was shocking to us. You can see the average hold time is 78 seconds. People don't like staying on hold. So make sure you've got a strategy in place to call people back. We also, we've got agent drops. We also have customer drops. Customers hate IVRs. 6% of these calls, they hung up right when they hit the IVR, didn't give the agent a chance to handle it. So make sure you've got a strategy in place to call these people back so you know who they are.
Scott, for those of us that may not be familiar with IVR, what does that stand for?
Well, I don't know. Heck, now you put me on the spot, but basically press 1 for this, press 2 for this,
I got you.
etc. Should you call them back? 100% you should call them back. On a normal campaign, a 4 attempt outbound campaign for service retention, about 35% of the people are going to answer. Of the people who dropped in Volley that were called back, 53% of them answered. 34% of them made service appointments. So, and we didn't take out status checks, which would have doubled this number. So you got to call people back, 100% of them. If you don't have a strategy to do that, you're not managing inbound. You're not making the people happy who are trying to do business with you. Okay, so you've done the work to not make the people angry who are trying to do business with you. And just keep in mind with this, you guys all know this, but every single person needs service. They maybe don't want to pay for service. They maybe don't want to, they didn't wake up and say, oh my gosh, I've got to get my car serviced today. I just love the free coffee and the lounge. It's got ESPN on. It's just so much fun. No one wakes up with that, but they all need service. So they just don't think of us like we think of them. We're thinking of our customer and our prospects all day. Your customers are not thinking of you all day. So you've got to take care of them when they are. And when they're not, you need to proactively reach out and get some business there because it's there to get. And I'll talk about that. So first of all, to dispel a few myths, people answer the phone better in the morning, the day part, but in general, they answer the phone all day. So don't let your dealership say people they don't answer the phones in the morning or no one answers the phones in the evening. It's not true. They answer the phones more in the morning. They're also calling in more for service in the morning. The appointment rates on an outbound call don't range that much by the day type if you make contact with them. And by the way, I would expect your conversion rate to be higher if it was strict service retention. These numbers also include some lost customers and such. But as you can see, over millions of calls, 6.8 million calls, the conversion rates aren't that different by the day parts. Don't let anyone talk you into the fact that they are. You need to work it from day to day. We tracked the number of people the agents said were interested who came in within the 90 days. 23% of the people marked as not interested came in within 90 days. It was like 91,000 people, something like
A
that.
quarter of people saying like, no, thanks, eventually say thanks. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
interested.
so that's a few things. Number one, they might have been doing something else, or they didn't have it in their mind. Um, uh, and they just might not have been ready. They weren't thinking of us, but you keep in mind they need service. So some people look at this and like, oh, my agents need to be better. That's not the case. They don't think of us like we think of them. Just keep in mind, even your no's, you need to be confident, you need to be friendly, and know that they're not actually ever a no. They're just a not right now. So keep that in mind on your outbound calls.
I think that's a good kind of mental switch to flip as well, right? So you want to close, but if you can't, you got to think of that as branding. I think you said top of mind, right? So that when they are ready, they're like, oh yeah, they called me 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, they're getting service, just whether they think of you. Answer rate by attempts. So I constrained this to service retention for these numbers, but if you're not making 4 attempts on every service retention campaign that you have, you're missing out on sales. So as you can see, the first attempt is the best and it goes down there. It drops off quite a bit after the 4th attempt. But working through a bunch of 4 attempts, those go pretty quickly and you'll get people on the phone. Most dealers give up too quickly on their campaigns. They print off a list. They have they check it off once, they never get back to it. You're losing sales if you don't. We manage this for our customers, but with or without Volley, make 4 attempts at least. What percentage of calls are listed as potential spam? It was estimated in 2022 that 32% of all business calls were labeled as potential spam. We provide that service for our customers to make sure none of them are, but you can do this on your own. Check with all the major carriers and call your lines at different, have your lines call these cell phones at different day parts and look. You are going to lower your answer rate by our math about 38% if you're not managing that as well. So,
All right, Scott, we got a question for you here.
Oh, sure.
So coming in from Holly, does the 5th attempt results, do they fall off enough to warrant that 4 is enough?
In our opinion, there was diminishing returns after the 4th attempt because and we count, like for Volley, most of our stores, and some of the stores track it a little bit differently on their end, but an inbound call from an outbound campaign is an outbound attempt just for our tracking, right? And the conversions past the 4th attempt are the answer rate was well below 10. The conversion rates were much below those numbers that I showed earlier.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, let's talk about the math. A lot of what the math is on outbound is how much effort you put in. Keep in mind, people need service. So on 100 outbound attempts on a 4 attempt service campaign, you should have about 32 conversations and 20 to 30% of those people buy. We benchmark a 30% rate. Our best dealers do. Some of them exceed it. We've got a customer in the Philadelphia area that far exceeds it. Effort matters on outbound. Don't let anyone tell you differently. Benchmark it separately from the number of inbound calls you take. So you can really move the needle for your store, putting a strategy in place that you follow there. Okay, so this is the question that every single person in the world has. The cliche, I know I'm wasting 50% of my advertising and so on. We've all heard that. We looked at that and we took a control group out of these 6.8 million calls. So all of them were targeted people who are due for service in some way by our dealerships. We took the people that they made an attempt, they got no response, they didn't leave a voicemail or anything, and we compared them to the people that they spoke with, whether they bought or not, or whether they said they were going to make an appointment or not. The lift was 51% for the people on the database, looking forward 90 days for the people who you engaged with in some way. You're helping them think of you when you're due. They're getting service, they're getting it somewhere, right? So it pays to contact these people. So really, to back up the last two slides, you make 850 more outbound attempts, you can make 50 more appointments. So dirty data, it's demoralizing for BDC agents to call people and they were on the list multiple times. We dedupe them as the list gets loaded in Volley, but you can do this on your own. Have your manager or you guys take some time at the start of the month. And if you're working off, an OEM list, load it in and dedupe the people as best you can. When we looked at DMS data, we looked at 200 stores of one DMS that we're sitting on. 39% of the records are duplicates. The OEM lists, the same people are on the list at the same time every month.
That's
So you guys need to put a strategy in place, and you don't even need to be perfect, but almost anything you do will help your agents convert more people and not waste more time.
All right, I got another question for you, Scott, here, some clarification here. Going back, so the last slide said conversion was 30%, appointments were 7 to 9. Verbally, thanks, you said conversation. Can you clarify? You meant conversation, like reaching the customer, or conversion, getting a positive result?
Yeah, heck, I probably messed that one up anyway, so I appreciate that. What I'm saying is we like to benchmark our customers by how many people they speak to for the number of appointments, because you can't always talk about a strict, I enrolled these people and these many people bought, because you might be calling on people who haven't been in for 13 months. You compare that for someone who's at 7 months and maybe due and maybe going to skip you, the conversion rates are totally different. So when you're measuring conversion rates, 20 to 30%, if you're below 20% for the number of conversations you have. So if you speak to 10 people, you should schedule at least 2 appointments, at least. And by the way, a decent amount of the people you do speak to will also come in later. They just weren't ready that day. But yeah, that's how we bookmark it. So that is specifically, I spoke to them, I marked that I scheduled an appointment, I scheduled in the service. So.
Got it. Holly, thank you for that. Keep them coming if you got them. All right, Scott, back to you.
Holly, you're an all-star. So really, let's talk about recommended benchmarks. When you're managing your agents, first of all, we look towards 85% efficiency. So that means that your agents are on the phones, working phone, email, SMS, etc., but generally 50 minutes an hour. You can make any of these numbers if you keep them on 50 minutes an hour. A lot of times people lose track with desk phones, and if they added it up, they'd find that their agents are on the phone 35% of the day. Try to measure how much time they're spending there. A good benchmark for drop rate is about 6%. And we have some stores, the Fred Beans stores, for example, they run about 3% drop rate. But in general, try to drop less than 6% of the calls and call back 100% of them. Remember, 74% of those people have a previous service in your DMS. Those people are buyers. Call back 100% of them. You don't need Volley for that. Most VoIP systems have a way to tell who missed it. Benchmark inbound and outbound calls separately. When we talk with new prospects, they're like, oh yeah, our agents do 80 calls a day. Well, some days it's a heavy inbound day and they don't really even get to outbound. If you don't benchmark outbound separately, you are going to do less sales. You're going to interrupt less people when they're due for service, and you'll do less business in general. Answer rates, you need to either be hiring someone like Dealer Identity to make sure your numbers aren't coming up as spam, or you need to be checking, and you can check those to see how your lines are. It's costing you business if you're not. And once again, the conversion stat. Try to keep track of how many people that you speak to that you guys schedule a service appointment on that day. You'll do way more business. One of the other things we like to do, and these are actual stats from a BDC, and they do tons of is it high funnel or low funnel? The low converting things, whatever it is, but which I wouldn't spend my time calling on those, but you want to make all of your agents look like your best agents. So when you put these stats together, line all your agents up and see who the stars are, how much time they're spending on the phone, what actions are they taking. Generally with BDCs, we only award outcomes. Well, heck, I want to win the Super Bowl. But, am I going to put the work in to do all the blocking and tackling? That's, the process that they make. Measure these processes separately by agent across many categories, and then compare them. What's the contact rate? I want to point out one of them. So Damien there, name change to protect the innocent.
Right.
It is nearly impossible to think that his contact rate is 3.7%. This dealership has an outbound quota for an agent to make, and they're calling and hanging up on people. Maybe Erica, if you look down here, her outbound conversion rate is 7%. But her other metrics look pretty decent. She's not spending too much time in a wrap up. She's ignoring a bunch of calls, and that tells me that she's probably new and they're not having her take inbound calls. She probably needs extra training. Benchmark all of your agents and compare them to your best agent. You'll make way more sales and you'll improve your agents. And by the way, a service BDC agent, we need to look at these positions like this is their entry level to greatness in your company. Many of the dealerships we work with, this is a starting job that they move them up from there to manager, to managers in the store or service advisors. So you're really doing them a service by doing this for them, monitoring their productivity, giving them goals. It's a noble thing. So just to wrap up, key learnings. So blended is better. Benchmark these things separately. You will make more sales. First things first, don't make the people mad who are trying to do business with you. Put processes in there to do it. On outbound, though, effort matters, and it matters substantially. And by the way, if you're good at outbound, you'll lower the number of inbound calls you're going to take. So we had a customer, a very, very large dealership out west, who had a terrible problem with drop calls. And we were able to show them just after a couple months on the tool, they were like, and really, that wasn't meant to be a plug there. I'm sorry, man. But they're like, geez, we're not getting as many inbound calls. And we're able to say, well, you're answering them more on the first time. The people who will call, because one thing we found, the 37% of the people who will call back over and over and over. And if you can proactively stop them, effort matters. Be cheerful, even when someone doesn't buy. That includes leaving good voicemails. It was about a 4% lift from the voicemail category compared to the do nothing category. Be cheerful. Your staffing strategy starts with Mondays, and remember, we daydream about our customers all day, but they're not thinking of us like we are of them. So, like I'm thinking of, geez, who can, who's thinking of me, right? So you need to be a little intentional about this and measure what matters, and you'll really grow your business. So I appreciate it. Thanks for
Thank
letting
you,
me run
Scott.
through that.
Yeah, so I'll throw a question at you here. So you mentioned that there was a store in Philadelphia that's just blowing through the benchmarks. What do you see that they're doing differently?
Um, a couple of interesting things. First of all, this is a large dealer group. They really have a good manager who works on their lists, and it's some combination of what's in the DMS and what was given by the OEM recalls, et cetera. They do a very good job of managing that. They do a ton of what we talked about today of training people on how to convert a sale. Um, a lot of people, they just like they just want help, right? They want to be comfortable. Matt, you called the right place. I know we can help you. Thanks for calling in. We'll take care of you. They do a great job of that.
Awesome. All right, we'll start to bring this thing home here. We got a couple more quick things to share. So here we are. We're back. We got going. All right, as we do, if you made it this far and you want your own TradePending mascot, hit up that URL right there, and we will send you one of these. No obligation, no required. But I will say, if you're wondering why the heck is TradePending talking about service, well, in case you missed it, we acquired Fixed Ops Digital a couple of months ago. And they have a phenomenal, I should say, we have a phenomenal platform now for marketing service offers on your website, keeping those prices, those offers up to date and in sync across your marketing channels, and financing integration. So you're going to reduce the amount of declines that you get because people can actually afford it now. So there you go. Get your mascot. Check us out for all things Fixed Ops Digital. There we are. Looks like we got one other question thrown in here. Let's go. All right. We got time for it. What texting strategies were utilized during this process as well? So with online chat, useful, it seems that would impact inbound and outbound calls as well. So I guess how does text kind of factor into the inbound outbound call strategy?
We Our dealers employ a strategy. It's called email and SMS. So they do run some text campaigns. They also um, send SMS, after a missed call, et cetera. I really tried to isolate that as good as I could. But yeah, that's a normal part of their strategy.
So I think probably the gut feel, and if you had to really dig into the data, that there's going to be a positive correlation between sending follow-up SMS and email to help and convert those appointments. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and actually, I wanted to focus on this mainly because I wanted to focus on the inbound portion of it and making phone calls. So that was the focus of this strategy. Are you making people mad, and is the effort worth it? So when we're going to redo this study in a few months, and I'll include some of those SMS stats.
And I hear it's debuting live at the Kane conference in April.
You're right. Yes. Yep.
Well, Scott, thank you very much for being with us today, for sharing all this stuff. I love it. I geek out on it. And we hope you have enjoyed it as well. And we'll see you next time. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, this was fun. Thank you.
Bye.